think.
I loved it. I actually started Governor's Comedy Shop.
Yeah.
My soon-to-be wife, to be ex-wife, and me. There was a club that the amplifiers had gotten so loud that the people were screaming about the rock and roll. So this club owners decided, let's try comedy. And somebody said, well, let's get the guy with the dirty joke line. And I'd had a dirty joke phone line since we first started comedy. I said, we need a way to promote. And I started putting dirty jokes and advertisements on the phone. And here it is 43 years later, and it's still going. The same
That's crazy.
stupid joke line.
That is crazy.
516-922-WINE. I don't know how you dial it from England, but dial it. And, it's just me going, hello, this is Jackie. Thanks for using your finger. Two Jews walk into a bar. It's that simple,
Phenomenal. Yeah, I've just, again, I was just listening about that joke line in your book today, and it's just crazy. I mean, for people coming up now, they're going to think, well, you phoned a number and heard stuff, but I'm old enough to remember things like the speaking clock and, weather you could call back in the 80s.
Right.
Yeah,
that that was in the very beginning, and people say, "Oh, you must have made so much money." It cost me money forever. It's a local call. It literally was in my mother's attic.
Wow.
It was an answering machine in my mother's attic. Now it's an answering machine in my house. It was never an 800, and you make a fortune off it.
So your plan. I mean, was that naivety at the time that you could have been stiffing people for money for listening to your jokes, or was it you just wanted it out there and a way for people to hear you?
It's hard to explain
to
anybody that's not from here, but any other state in the United States, you could walk in and say, I want an 800 number, and tell them what you want and plop down your money and get one. In New York State, to try and get an 800 number, you would be hard pressed to find somebody to ask who can ask. There's so much red tape. So I never even, and plus you needed thousands of dollars to get started. Yeah. So all I did was say, you know what, I'm just going to get a joke line and put the jokes on it, and hopefully people will call. And it was an instant terrific advertisement. It got me Governor's Comedy Shop, which made it worth everything. And it's made me infamous. So the stories about the stupid joke line go on, and it just never gets old. It's cost me money, but it's more than worth it in the long run. You know what I'm saying?
So how many people were? Yeah, of course it is. How many people were calling that in its prime? How many did you get data on that?
At the peak, this is hard to explain. It's not really hard to explain. After it was doing so well, I asked for a second line, and they said, we can't give you a second line because you're not in a business area. And believe it or not, and nobody, I never make up stories, but they're hard to believe. The guy said, wait a minute, are you the guy with the jokes? Because if you have something like a joke line, the people in the phone company, the first people that know it, pass it around. And I said, yeah. And he said, you know what? We're going to give you the second line, the rollover line. A couple of weeks later, I called up and said, I got to have more lines. They sent the foreman over. He came over into my mother's attic and looked, and just fascinated by these two answering machines, and gave me two more lines. Then I did it, and a different foreman came. Each time they came because they couldn't believe what was going on. And I got up to where I had 10 answering machines with 1 minute endless joke cassettes in. In other words, if you called, you got a minute's jokes, or a minute's message, and then it hung up. Rick Dees in California was the number one DJ in LA, and he got hold of the thing and found out about it. And he told his listeners that 516-922-9463 was Tom Selleck's home phone number. Okay. Now try and picture this. Okay. There's 10 answering machines, and they're a rollover business line. So if you call, you get machine number one. If somebody else calls and one is busy, you get machine number two. If somebody else calls and 1 and 2 are engaged, you get machine number 3. Okay? If 6 machines are going and somebody calls, it rolls to the 7th machine. Okay? But you got to remember, the answering machines are 1 minute. So if 1's engaged, 2's engaged, 3's engaged, 4's engaged, And then somebody else calls, but the first machine is done. It goes to that machine. It always goes starting with number one.
Right.
And we had a counter on the 10th machine. And the 10th machine would only go off if all the other 9 were engaged within 1 minute. And the counter on that 10th machine went to 99 like 5 times a day. Now, you got to picture the parabola or whatever you call it. We estimated somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 calls a day. It could have been half that. It could have been 5 times that. And the amount of people that might have got busy signals, who knows? I met so many people over the years that said, my family hated you because their phone number was 1 digit off. So people in the middle of the night would be calling looking for the jokes, but they instead of 9463, they'd 9464, and they get Charlie's house,
Oh
And
my.
it was just insane. It was just so much fun, just crazy, crazy, crazy. And that got me people, and nobody ever heard of me. They never saw the dial joke sticker. They heard from a friend, from a friend, from a friend, from a friend at work. It was,